Oh, yes, there it is. Now it's 11:11. Okay. We're here. Kevin, have you met Christopher? Christopher, have you met?
I don't know. We've slacked a little bit.
Yeah, I
Um,
think I met you once, Kevin, at a very introductory call for Equalify when I first
yeah,
started getting
that
involved in the project.
that
Yeah,
sounds about right.
yeah.
I've been the one that said I was going to test and then haven't. Now I have.
Hey, this is good. This is good.
You're working with Adonis? Is that
Adonis.
right? Adonis.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm working with Adonis. That's right.
Okay. Blame Jaws for that. Jaws is saying it like that. So sorry about that.
No, no worries.
Okay, so what I wanted to cover today, and I'm a very efficient person when I meet at 11:11s, because it's a very precise time. Uh, I wanted to cover Adonis. Oh, it's cool. Trey's here. Um, Adonis might not be able to join, but I'll catch him up async, and anybody who joins after can watch this video. Um, and I think the root of it, the root of what we're talking about, is what you put together, Christopher,
Okay.
because it raises a lot of really good questions. Um, Not just about the project that you've kind of put in, but about like generally of like this next tranche of Equalify. And so for everybody, just like what has kind of where we are at in the Qualify development is we got a bunch of money from an angel investor a while ago, back in August.
Hmm.
Um, and we've spent almost all of that money. Um, Now, I think by the end of June, maybe July, we'll have spent all of the money, which would be perfect because it was like about a year of estimating. Oh, cool, Adonis is here. So Adonis and Trey are here, Kevin, and Chris. Um, so we spent about a year of money, which was $100,000, which seems like a lot, but it went really quickly. And a lot of that money was spent of just like seeing how we could do things with money, because we never Qualify was totally like open source fun times, mostly for me, without anybody getting paid. And so then we started to pay people for their time and just see how it is. This is part of an idea of becoming what's called a commercialized open source software, which is like basically we want to be sustained by being a business. And so to do that, you kind of have to pay people because when you start to pay people, they start to expect it, and then you have to get customers. So we did that, $100,000. I'm really happy with the outcome. I think we're at a point now where I, as whatever the lead developer or whatever it is I am, have a very clear picture of a roadmap with Equalify. We have initial customers with Equalify. We have a great team now, um, and we have some momentum behind us. And so the next phase of development, and for Trey and Adonis who's just joining us, I'm just kind of talking through where we were and what we're doing now. For the next phase of development, we have about $75,000. I say about because there are extra like fees and stuff attached with that, like accountants and stuff. So let's just say we have $75,000, but it's not quite $75,000. Um, and and I really don't want to raise more money after this. I'm like kind of tired of dealing with investors, and I think it's like I think that there's no reason why we shouldn't get to a place of sustainability through with $75,000, especially since we have some momentum with customers right now coming in. Um, and so the now we're thinking about how to spend the $75,000. And with $100,000, we were committed to paying people pretty equally. Um, and now we have to kind of think, okay, was that the right approach of just like saying everybody who comes in gets this pretty much the same amount of money? I think Kevin is the highest paid person ever for Equalify, but I let that slip because he was also, I mean, highest paid hourly person was I let that slip because it was also he wasn't doing the like his work was hyper focused and not like super amounts of hours like developers were. but and also, it was a statement to say how much we care about user testing. Um, but everybody else was paid $70 an hour. Um, and that just kind of paid development. And then I did, out of my pocket, I did the $11,000 kind of April push, and just let that kind of be a bounty system. We also had bounties, so it wasn't quite breaking with tradition to do bounties, but this is a much bigger bounty. Um, so we had the $70 per hour and then the bounty system. And now the next phase of development, and I'm going to share my screen and I'll describe my screen, Kevin, too, so don't worry about, I will. So I'm showing GitHub right now, and Chris, and in fact, I'll also put in the chat the link that I'm sharing, which I think you all should have access to. So Chris made an amazing proposal for the next phase of development for his API feature, and it's really, really good. And part of this is the cost and maintenance part. Um, and so I and Chris, he didn't pull this out of thin air. It was a directive from me of saying, like, let's think about it in terms of a one-time fee for a huge scope of development, and then a monthly fee for maintenance and support of that development, not necessarily for feature build out. And so that was kind of like the way I was thinking about future development, was like, okay, we would pay like lump sums um, for a development of a feature, and then monthly sums for maintenance. Um, some other ideas that I have, and what I would like to do is I would like to have like a short conversation on just like what you all are thinking is fair. And I know you all are contributing and working to it for Equalify, and I want to make sure you all are paid in some degrees. So I want us to come together and figure out the next phase. So one of the ways is to do a lump sum and then a monthly fee. Um, my critique of, and I'll offer both critique and alternatives to even the things that I propose, because I think this should come out of like a community understanding and decision. But like, my critique of this might be, there are gonna be people paid a lot more than others. So you're gonna have, people who are doing bigger projects getting paid more. And that might be fine. Then the critique I would have of the maintenance piece is like, we don't really know how much maintenance there's going to be, and um I kind of like that, because I think you're rewarding people who do stuff that is really rock solid by giving them a kind of like a chunk of cash per month, of just saying like, you're doing great. But that is not the case for every task. So for instance, like accessibility user testing requires someone actually doing user testing. So it's hard to like really incentivize the maintenance per month piece to that. So that's a little bit difficult. An alternative to this would be what I would call like a sponsored open source contributor position. And we see this a lot within WordPress right now. And this is basically saying, here's a flat rate, let's just say $1,111, uh, and we'll review and renew it once every 3 months. And we'll just look at what you got, and Equalify will be your sponsor to do Equalify work. And it's just like flat cash every month, and with a few review sessions. Not really too many ideas of deliverables. It's more self-directed. Um, what I've seen that I like about it is people tend to get more passionate about their work they're working on, because it's not like cost for deliverable. But the negative piece I've seen about it is it slows development a little bit, because you're not paying a lot of money. You're not paying like somebody's full living wage. You're giving them, in my mind, it would be like from 555 to $1,111 per month, and you're basically saying, we're sponsoring you, and then the sponsor can renew, which would be the sponsor, Qualify, can renew with the rates that I've been seeing is around 3 months for continued development, or sometimes upping it even higher. Um, but those are the two options that I've seen, which is like, here's the bounty system with a maintenance thing. I haven't seen this before. This is something I pulled out of thin air, and Chris, thought was cool too. Or there is the just like sponsored contributor thing of just saying, here's money, do what you want to do, but we're going to review at the end of X amount of months. Does anybody have any strong feelings about either one of those ways, or like none of them and doing just like per hourly type of deals in like the traditional way? No strong feelings? Cool. I mean, I could pick it. I think, like, I guess my question then to you, Chris, because you're the only one that we've really been talking about this, um, is like, what do you see changing if we made it like Chris gets $1,111 a month as a sponsored developer without deliverables attached to it?
I think that's an interesting proposition. My only concern with that is that it no longer the amount of work does not seem as consistent. So you'd be getting like 1,111 for a huge bulk at the very beginning, and then afterwards it would taper off. So it makes less sense to me than the feature slash maintenance solution that you proposed. So I guess I am a bit more in favor of that, and it kind of helps to keep people aligned. I see the value in maybe doing a kind of, we're sponsoring you, just do whatever you want. And I can totally see the freedom. But for that kind of project, I would want freedom. Right now, I think I've got like a very clear task, which is build out an API that can work with other people. If it was a bit more of like an kind of open labs experiment, and they're just like, hey, you seem like a good developer, see where you can fit in. Maybe you could build something that helps out. Then I would see maybe more of a, yeah, like a monthly open source sponsorship.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah, I think you're right about that. Um, and so I think that's the way to move forward. Um, the so I'm only picking on you, Chris, because you did a really good job in overlaying
That's
it. So it's not
uh,
like,
I appreciate it. I'm happy to go through my ticket.
okay, cool. Yeah, it's not like this is more of like an example than like I want to make sure we frame it that way. But so the ticket that we're looking at is like you have an overview of tasks, you have the different pieces that we need to add to the API, um, with the LLM integration, which I think is actually going to be a really cool key feature that we'll have. Um, and then you have a nice checklist saying, everything that's here. Oh, it looks like complete git scans is twice.
Yeah.
Um, but and then the cost and maintenance. So like this is kind of setting my expectation for what I would want to see with future development pieces. I added a few notes here, Chris, of like, and so I think this would be the process of like, you know, okay, like, Kevin wants to do a like giant audit of all the front end, or something that I was also thinking about, Kevin, is like more like if you want more tasks and more time
Mhm.
and more money, it's more like taking on some outreach would be a thing.
Yeah,
I know that we did
yeah,
that.
I
Um
like that.
and so we would use like these basically three big bullet points, which is like, every time we're renewing something, we'll have like an overview of tasks, a cost and maintenance area, and a timeline area with it. I think that would be a great idea. And then I will add specific like comments on it, because I still will be like the purse strings person. Um, I also have to figure out how I'm getting paid now. That is one thing, and I like to be really open about it. So, because before I was just getting paid like per hours doing development work, so I got like $70 an hour for development work, and now I don't really have an idea of what I'm going to do. So I'm actually probably going to put together one of these for myself and then get you guys to look at it.
That'd
I
be
think
great.
that's
We could review it.
yeah, I think that's the way to do it. Because I started like going down this rabbit hole of like, wait, what the fuck? Like, do I just like give myself an arbitrary amount of money? But I think I'll put together one of these for myself and then I'll give it to you all. I think that's the way. Was there any comments or anything?
I had a
And
quick,
before we, yeah, go ahead.
I had a couple idea. A quick question, and can you clarify what's up with or what's happening with the LLM stuff? I've been a little out of the loop trying to catch myself up on everything.
Yeah, Chris might be a good one to talk about the status
Yeah,
of that.
absolutely. So, Kevin, currently we are still building out the LLM portion of the API. It would be a distinct endpoint slash help. So api.equalify.app/help.
Mhm.
You'd be able to send a post request to it that includes the accessibility issue description, accessibility URL, the source URL, the
Of the issue.
of the issue,
Okay.
yes. And then the DQ University, or however you pronounce it, the
DQ deck, either way.
yeah, DEC or DECU,
Yeah.
DEC University accessibility, I guess page associated with the accessibility issue that was flagged. So
Mm,
that kind of helps the LLM capture some context, and it's using that as its source of truth. Like, oh, these are the standards that you're following.
yeah.
And then we feed it through an OpenAI function call text completion. So
Nice.
we have it set up in such a way where we can feed it all of this data and it should spit out a kind of nice standardized uniform, like, hey, this is what developers could do with a little code snippet suggestion.
Nice. That's cool. Is the extension still have the Chrome extension still under development, or is that
Yeah,
not?
and so that's
Okay.
one. It's not only under development, but today I'm gonna crack. In fact, right this second, I'm gonna crack the whip on this because that's the only one. Like, I'm amazed that all of the projects I just randomly said here, I'm gonna just throw money at. Like, only one project seems to have hit the like almost fail mark, and that's the Chrome extension. And so, oh, it looks like Cole updated it recently. Um, uh, but I'm gonna crack the whip on that because that will be built. We're calling that Project Raga, Kevin. Um,
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything in the Slack.
no, it's just the developer has been. I wouldn't even call it dragging his feet, but like we have such a rock star team of developers right now.
Hmm.
It's on the call that like this developer is just kind of regular, and regular isn't cutting it right now. So
Fair.
that's what I would say. Um, okay, is that clarify that, Kevin?
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
Um, so um, you have this, Chris, and I don't know. So I guess would it be helpful? What I would love, I'm sharing my screen and I'm showing the project board, which I'll also add in the chat here, just so I have that for everybody. So what I usually do, and Trey would know this because we do it with the cubing, is every call, every regular meetup, I kind of focus them around a project board and like kind of look at what's in progress, what's to do. I try to have this project board ready and to go by the time we are on a call. That's on me. Um, but so these projects are in progress right now, and we kind of can go through, like, usually what happens is we just go through the pieces in progress and I'll bring up anything new. Um, so and then it becomes of like what's most helpful for you all. So I mean, Chris, is there anything with your project that we can tackle on this call, or do you want to do it async in addressing the issues that I pulled up? I'm happy to do it on this call or async.
I
And
think we could do it either way. I could go through it quickly right now. If you want to scroll down, I can answer kind of question by
yep,
question, and that could be
yep,
kind of like an,
totally.
all right, so let's go to number two. Can the bulk of this API? So number one, super exciting. Appreciate it. Thank you. Number two, can the bulk of this API run without Amazon? Yes, it can, and it seems that you answered it correctly. Even the LLM could run without Amazon,
Wow.
because we're using OpenAI. So you can skip, I guess, the middleman and go straight to making an OpenAI. I guess you could tell people bring your own keys. Like if you wanted to do an open source solution and you wanted people to leverage the LLM, or if you want to keep the LLM as kind of like a paid AGPL feature, you could do that too, but
Cool.
that is possible. For number three, I don't mind talking about this right now. Maybe we could do 500 a month as a
Okay.
maintenance.
Yeah,
I'm happy with
and
that.
I think let's start with 500 a month, and then let's revisit it. Let's have like a day to revisit it. How about that? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, because I don't. We both don't know how much it's going to be. So let's say like let's do that for 3 months maybe, or two. I mean, what do you think?
Uh, let's do 3 months is fine because that's what you suggested last time. That's like the seems to be the regular open source
Yeah.
quarterly interval thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Cool. And then totally forgot about Git updates. Oh yeah, that was on me. So and this might be actually a good question with Adonis too. Um, with the chart, uh, the just get results doesn't have in the way that I had it scoped out, and maybe you've been thinking about differently, so maybe we don't need this endpoint. But in the way that I had it scoped out, it wouldn't get all the stuff from the updates table in the get results. You would have to use another call to get those updates, and you would need that to build a chart over time.
got it. I
Were you
think
asking me? Or
What's that?
were you asking me something or?
Well, did how did you think about getting the chart over time? Was that like did you have that mapped out? I guess my question is, did you have the chart API call mapped out yet? Or is that still something? Because if it's still something you haven't mapped out, then we can definitely
Yeah,
um
I haven't thought of that as of it. I was hoping that we had, like an NPI endpoint which we will use to get those with that to get that data. But if you think we can get, a separate endpoint such as updates, that's fine with me. It would be nice if we can just reuse the get results, maybe in the front end, or make the back end do all the work and just structure it to send it to the front end. And
Yeah,
that's
I agree with that. I was under the impression that we would only do get results as like the big charting API
yeah.
call. Get updates would solely be charting. Is that the distinction?
the way that I was scoping it out, and maybe this is not right, if is that the get updates would literally just output what's in the updates table, and
Yeah.
then you could use the node IDs to then make the chart on the front end that are in the GitHub updates table. You can then request those IDs or filter the get results by those IDs.
So you wouldn't be able to produce a chart with just the get results. You would need to use a combination of get updates and get results.
Exactly, but I don't know if that's the right, and it sounds to me like we just need to add into the schema um a way to add in like an updates
Yeah, I
array.
think like an optional param that is kind of like include chart because it's going to be extra data, but it might be necessary for some cases. And then Adonis can ingest one Equalify schema and have
Yeah,
fun with
I
it.
agree.
Okay, cool. So instead of a different endpoint, we'll just add a param and update the schema. Cool. Amazon costs, do you have any idea of how much the Amazon fees? Chris?
I believe the cost would be very minimal right now, like extremely minimal. Let me break it down. The two databases would be roughly $20 a month. So that's for a staging and a production database.
Yeah.
The Cognito is free for up to 25,000 users, which I think will be fine for.
Cool.
And the Lambda is going to essentially be free for the first million invocations. So I also don't see that. But as soon as that does become, I guess, a paid resource, I doubt it would go over like 100 a month. If you're
Cool.
thinking of like around 2,000 to 4,000 users, just from my experience.
Okay.
And then we have two EC2. No, actually, we don't have an EC2 instance. We actually fixed that with this. We're doing Postgraph file inside of the Lambda. So
Oh, nice.
there's no running EC2. We have one EC2 instance that is just kind of displaying the database. It's $10 a month. It's kind of like PHP My Admin. I showed it to you, Blake, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
might make it easier for developers to just kind of go in without configuring their database credentials or SSH or what have you.
Cool.
And that's it. Then there's some S3 and egress traffic, but we won't hit any of that. So
Okay. And then there's also Chat GPT or GPT 4, right? The API,
that's
OpenAI.
correct. That's correct. So that's right now it's purely OpenAI. We could use Anthropic or Llama or Mistral through Amazon Bedrock. Those costs we'd have to get a bit more detailed
Yeah.
about.
And I have a pretty good relationship with them that I probably will be able to get more free stuff through.
Awesome.
Okay, cool. That's helpful. Deployment documentation. Okay, that's so I went through the repo. And for everybody, this is the API repo. The only thing I didn't see was deployment documentation, but maybe I'm missing something.
I think I had a little bit in the README. Oh, but I guess deploying the actual resources like
Yeah,
onto. No, I need to add that in. So I might add like an infrastructure document or a cloud document.
cool.
Um,
And
something.
that should be private.
Yes, I
Okay.
agree.
That the
Because right
only
now the
yeah,
environment is also private. I have the staging and production environment are set to private. Just ask a team member because I mean those are our cloud keys. That's
yeah,
everything.
yeah, yes, cool. So the documentation would be a thing that we can do.
Yeah, let's call it I guess deploy infrastructure.md or deployment.md, whatever you want to call the file.
Yeah. Let's just deploy MD is what I think we're more used to. Deploy MD file, a private. Okay, cool. And then great. So I'm comfortable to say at that $500 a month, let's get this going. I'll transfer the cash to you today, and oh, I guess my other question is, can we start the maintenance after when it's built? Is
Yeah,
that
of course,
okay?
of
Cool.
course. I think it's a reasonable ask.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Starting when it's built. Okay, cool. Cool. So I think my Blake's response. Let's get going. All right, good to go. Okay, so we're good to go with it. All right. So I will transfer the cash so that so it's officially moving, and yeah.
Awesome.
The only well, okay, the only other thing that I totally forgot around reviewing stuff is with Trey, I think would be the person, and if not Trey, maybe Adonis or me, would be of just like knowing what's up. And Trey, I don't know if you had a chance to look at this yet, the API yet, but it would be helpful to basically like know that we have more than two people looking at it, and I could be that second person. I just don't know if I'll have time to really be that second person. So I don't know if this is something, Trey, that you were interested in or if you were able to do. And if not, we'll just try to figure out a second as well. And it might end up being May.
Yeah, I looked at it real quick, and it seemed all pretty straightforward, but I can like sort of in the sense of, a redundancy kind of sense in case like, you know, just if I needed to like spin it up, you know, by myself or make like significant changes to it, I could look at it with like from that perspective and see if there's anything that like I'm unclear on.
Cool. Cool. And then yeah, because like it would be good to have just like redundancy situations in place. And I even think, Trey, that could be a project on its own almost. As like I like you like yeah, I of like just understanding the larger architecture of all the Equalify things that are happening as well. I think that's like a project. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, it seems like the kind of situation that we're in, like, so we have the API largely built out and then going to be wrapped, I guess, pretty soon in the next couple weeks. And then separately, we have the front end. And I guess the thing is, like, those are obviously paired since they both use the new stuff. So it seems like before we get, I guess my question would be, to get to a proper 1.0 of like this stuff being fully integrated, whether Chris or Adonis, like either of you saw any like blockers or anything that was, if there's anything that you were unclear on as far as, again, roadblocks to like having a fully functional front end and back end for this and ready to like, pull the trigger.
I think the biggest roadblocks are just things that we have to try wrapping our heads around. I think I just need to do maybe one or two more calls with Adonis specifically on the results, ingesting them and producing them, because I'm sure we'll run into questions. But I think I've gotten enough information as much as I could from Blake and Trey. I can reach out to you afterwards, and I think Adonis can as well. So I think we just need to be left a little bit to kind of rack with it and see if we can come out the other side. If we can't, we'll definitely be communicative and try to schedule a meeting and see what's missing. But that's the biggest roadblock, I think, is just this kind of knowledge that hasn't really been documented and that we're, I guess, attempting to rebuild and document.
And then moving to the front end, Adonis. So you sent me we have this which is like the initial build front end piece. And then you sent me another kind of scoping document that was really good that maybe we can drop in as an issue in the repo. So I guess, is your plan like, how should we manage this? Is your plan to get to a certain point and then like start version 1 development, or how are you kind of looking at your work?
Well, so far, all I need to get implemented into the front end is just a couple more endpoints, such as these scans and um the results, if I'm not mistaken. Other than that, I should have a pull request for today that includes the properties and some things for the account page. As far as development for V1, like I told you, I'm planning on creating a design, like
Mhm.
a better UI for
Yeah.
the front end. But I don't know if you would like that to be after we, push to V1 or before, so that the users don't have that, drastically change of UIs after. So it's really
Yeah,
um
I'm kind of curious with Kevin. So like Adonis is working on basically like revamping the UI a bit. Um and and like Kevin, and but we could, I mean, I guess my first question would be to Adonis, which is like, how much more time do you think it would push it back if um, we waited for like the design to kind of be hot and hip and tested, before we launched it?
Okay, so if I get your approval for the design, I can probably get the design done no later than like a week. I can work on
Okay,
that quick because I told you I have been doing some UI and UX research
yeah,
for better design system for that thing I'm trying to do.
yeah,
But I mean, I can get that up now, changing what I have currently on the front end, completely changing the UI, that can probably take me, 2 weeks, 3 weeks max.
cool.
So it's
I think it's
not,
I think it's worth it then to go ahead and go that route of
yeah,
with
because
the
my goal was to have everything, like including the design and reflecting the design on the front end by June, like the second week of June, have
Mhm,
everything ready. Because this current ticket right here, it's basically done. We're just waiting on a few endpoints, like Christopher said.
mhm,
Other than that, I think everything else is done.
yeah. I wonder, because if this is pretty much done, I guess we could keep it internal and then wait for the V1 being the redesign. I wouldn't be too opposed to that. Kevin's gonna have to definitely get with you to do a lot of to figure out some of the user testing aspects of it to make sure that, it's works for screen readers and things like that.
So
Uh,
I had a question on that.
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I started doing because I told Chris and Adonis I would do testing. So I started doing that. I actually ran into I sent a message on Slack. We can talk async if need be, but I ran into some blockers and maybe because it's the dev site. But yeah, I started doing that, yes, and got a lot of it done yesterday. I just don't know. I assume we want to keep it in the ecosystem, in which case where to put it on GitHub. That was my only question
Mm.
for.
I think it's all on the Equalify front end. I'll drop in the link in the chat here.
Okay,
Um, oops,
awesome.
I just dropped it to like the first issue, but if you
Okay,
go to the issues tab
okay.
there, that's where I would drop in stuff. We have to figure out that workflow a little bit because
Hmm.
like if we I guess the thing to do, Adonis, would be to finish what you're working on right now,
Yeah,
get this onto the dev environment, get it tested with Kevin so that we can be using it internally and showing it to clients and doing things like that internally, but not call it our V1. And then once you've resolved the issues that Kevin posts and stuff with this current version, there's no reason why you can't be working at the same time. I mean, Kevin's gonna have to take some time to test, so you
yeah.
can be working on Figma templates or whatever you're gonna do. Um, and then at that same time, and then we're using basically the thing you did as a proof of concept for clients and things like that, and also for you to get up to speed with working with a user testing like Kevin. And then we'll expect, towards the end of June to launch our version 1 with the totally reimagined user experience. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
Perfect.
So the stuff I had seen before, this is all completely like reimagined.
It's going to, I mean, I don't know, Adonis, like, what would you call it? Completely reimagined or
It
like,
looks like it's building off of it, from what
yeah.
I saw.
Um, are you referring to like what we currently have?
Or
Because
no,
what
the
we
next
currently have,
version, like, would you call your, like, when you're thinking about like the UX development for the next version, do you consider it like completely reimagined or like building off what we have? How do you kind of
Well, I think the best thing for this type of project is going more based on a dashboard system.
Mhm.
So it'll be not a a big change, but there will be a few things that are going to be different from the current design.
Cool. Uh, yeah, so it'll be pretty different, Kevin.
Nice. Okay.
But it's building off of, off of what we have, but
Yeah.
in more of a larger piece. Um, so I would say, Kevin, to post the issues that you have for this, we'll get those taken care of so that we can then just use it internally. It'll be like the internal version that we
Yeah.
use
Okay.
for this. And then when Adonis, you're ready. Kevin, have you ever tested Figma templates before?
I have not.
I wonder how that
I'd be
works with user
curious.
testing.
I
Because
would be
are you,
curious.
Adonis, are you doing Figma? Are you planning to do some of the stuff in Figma? How are you planning on?
Yes, yes. I work on Figma.
Okay, interesting. Well, maybe, Kevin, this could be a good experiment.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
I've never, we've done stuff with like our design people, but they've never let me. Yeah, I'd love to try it.
yeah, I'm curious what it would be like because Figma likes to talk up accessibility, but I'm not too sure. So
Hmm.
maybe Adonis, and Kevin, maybe you guys can just be in contact about
Yeah.
the version one. Um, and then Adonis, as far as like uh the payment for the build out and these kind of things, like would you create a new ticket in um in the Equalify front end, like what Chris did for the API that has like, here are the tasks. I think you already sent me the most of the tasks, but like if you just put it in a ticket, that would be helpful for me with like a cost breakdown and whatever you need so that I can approve it from that ticket and then add it to the project page.
For sure, yeah. Do
Okay,
you
cool.
want me to do a single one or separate, like two separate? Because one is for development and then one is for the design. Do you want me to combine those two? Since they will
Um,
be
you could do it two separate ones, whatever you feel comfortable with. Yeah, whatever you feel most comfortable with. It's a
okay,
Yeah. If if you did it in one, I would say it would just be a bigger one. It'd have more. But
yeah,
whatever you felt most comfortable with. It's just so that we have like clear understanding of what's going on and I could put it, whatever we can do, we can put it into the project board and so we can see things, over time. Um,
okay.
so yeah. And I think I'll post a link to you two right now to or I put it already in here to Chris's ticket because that's a really good example of like the just general format um of things. Okay, so we have that and now moving anything else with the front end, Adonis?
Um, Not really. Maybe I can probably get in touch with Chris about how we are trying to, digest the information for the LLM, the API. I don't know how we're going to use it in the front end yet, but
Yeah,
I do have a couple of ideas on how we might be able to do it.
cool,
But I guess that's just,
cool.
um,
The closer it is to like a Copilot chatbot type of deal, the
yeah,
better. uh because the way that I just for you and Chris both to know, the way that I've been talking about it to like potential users and users is like it'll be like your handy accessibility copilot of like understanding what's actually on the page and how to make sense of it and how to fix issues that and you can like respond to it. But
perfect. Okay,
that's kind of the general way. And that's the way I see more people using um the LLM integrations now.
sounds good.
Yeah, I think that I can support anything we can do. We probably want to do streaming responses rather than buffered, so you can see text as it's being generated, like in Markdown. That's probably the biggest challenge that I see, but we can get something working.
And then would that come through the front end? Like,
Yes.
okay, because I'm thinking through some of the potential challenges with accessibility. Definitely definitely good. Sorry, go ahead. I was
Yeah, what
thinking-
would be some of those challenges just
Um,
off the top of your head?
so yeah, I would, so just thinking off the bat here, you know, you could potentially, you want the screen reader to notify you what's coming in and then it not interrupting itself with the next thing coming in. If that makes any sense, I'm visualizing it in my head. Like here's a, you could see this with chat bots and things like that too. But yeah, this is a perfect example. So say something's coming back, you know, you say, you know, tell me about whatever, or I don't know. Anyway, and it comes back to you with a response, and then the next response, I just don't want, it would be a less than ideal and less than accessible experience if it's coming back, it kicks a response back, and then response two interrupts the reading of response one, and then you have to try to go back and read it, and it's a big mess. I don't know if any of that made sense.
Right. So if you're basically, if it's reading a response and while it's reading a response, you start typing in something and then before it's finished reading the response, it will kick to the next response.
Mm-hmm. So streaming is the whole thing is at once, or how does that work? What's the difference between streaming and buffering? Sorry if I'm just trying to understand the difference for the responses.
Chris, do you have? I think streaming would be that you see that it's reading out as it responds. So
Okay.
like kind of like instead of you having to wait a minute and then it reads it out, it starts
Mhm.
reading it out immediately.
Okay. I think we would just have to work through and make sure that it's not cutting itself off. The screen reader is not interrupting itself.
Right.
And I, yeah,
Yeah.
and I have
Yeah.
some.
I think it's about, yeah, and I think we'll have to have an extra layer of that. I mean, like we'll just have to make sure that there's nothing that's no notifications or anything that's gonna basically break it reading it out.
Mhm.
That's the key, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I think we need to decide, like, maybe like this already, we just made that decision, but like whether or not, because I think like whether or not the LLM integration is we feed it, a particular URL and like rule is violated and then get back, static text of like how to fix it, like a suggestion thing, or whether we're like just talking about integrating like a interactive chatbot with it that's trained for this stuff within the app, because those are just two very different things. One is basically just static text, and it could come from anywhere, and the other one is like an actual chatbot that's built into it, which is going to have implications both, I think, from accessibility standpoint and from obviously from the design standpoint or like a UX standpoint.
Gotcha. Yeah, first, yeah. Yeah. And Adonis, that would be a question with you of like, is there like a chat? I think I think I can answer this where you will want it to be like a co-pilot. So you will want to be browsing pages and then have the chat bot on the page at all times. Um,
Yes. So what I was thinking for the UI is having like, uh, how can I say? I don't know if you have seen when you go to like support pages, they have like a small circle at the right top, at the bottom right of the screen, where whenever you click it, it expands, and then you have a way to chat with the bot. So I was thinking having that, and that will follow you to all the pages that you go through, and you can ask questions based on whatever information you pass.
yeah, I did a bit of accessibility testing. And Kevin, you probably have experience with this too, of like the help text chat bots on pages. And some of them, like Intercom, were really good in that it like focused the focal area into it. And so it would read it out and nothing would disrupt it. And others like that, it just became disruptive. I think we'll have to think about how we lay it out on the DOM because if it's something that a screen reader user is gonna wants to quickly tab to, we probably want to bring it up pretty high. So like like just I'm thinking about like the markup would be like you have the main navigation, and then you have a fairly soon after the main navigation in the DOM, you would have the chatbot. Uh, Even though it would be visible through like, an absolute on the towards the bottom of a page for a screen reader, I would just think it would be a pretty key thing that they might want immediately. Kevin, have you had are there any examples of like good chatbots that you've come into? I mean, ChatGPT isn't that bad, I've been told, but
It's better on the app than on the website.
okay.
Just a bunch of unlabeled buttons on the website. You can use it, but it's like I'd have to get back to you on the chatbot thing because I've seen different ones. Especially, yeah,
Have you
like
ever tried like Intercom?
I've seen it. Do we use it? I've seen it, but it's been a while since I've
Okay, I'm kind of
really
curious.
taken
I'm
a
gonna
look.
quickly look at it and
Because
see.
the thing is knowing about new messages that come in.
What's that?
That's oh, sorry. I said the big thing is knowing about when new messages come in. And so
Right.
you're not having to constantly read the screen. Was there an update? You know.
Yeah. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, it's gonna be so like one thing I would just suggest looking at, Adonis, is just like screen reader best practices for chatbot or chatbot best practices for screen readers.
And
Because
I can work with you on that too,
yeah,
Adonis. Like, um, once it's ready to go, I'm happy to take a stab at it and look. But yeah, there are a bunch of different chatbots out there. I'd have to look at like Intercom. It's been a
yeah,
while.
Intercom used to be the best one. I haven't looked at it in a while, but anyway.
For sure. So I was actually thinking as something like that. You saw like the little small circle on the
Mhm.
bottom right. So maybe I just have to find a way to make that accessible so that it's one of the first things that whenever you tab, it
Right,
highlights that section.
right.
But I don't know, do you guys think that that would be like a nice way to integrate the chatbot in the web or
Yeah, well, I mean in me going through with users, and it looks like Intercom is like the first thing when you click tab, it goes to the, or it did. No, it's like this is pretty funny because the Intercom, um we could talk about this later, but like the intercom um interface is one of the last things it goes to, so it's actually a bad one. Because like if Kevin came to the intercom.com page, he would not even know that there's a chat bot on it.
Oh, it's the last item in the DOM usually, right? It's at the
Yeah,
very bottom, basically.
yeah. So it's just like this,
Which is
what
great if there's a couple things, but a lot of these websites have a ton of stuff. Like I'm never gonna go through
yeah, yeah.
the whole page.
But it is something. So like Adonis, what I've seen how I've seen people use this is, you know, is you could be on a page. I'm on the intercom.com page right now, Kevin, and like the little chat bot is open. But you're interacting with it based off of the content on the page. So for instance, if I was on, let's go to the Equalify site, and I'm going to the Equalify dashboard now. I'm on a dashboard. So for instance, if I was on this page and I open the chatbot, there might be some like prompts of like, what does all this mean? How do I fix these errors? There might be like three like basic prompts, and you click on one, and then it is just context aware to whatever page you're on, and it's telling me it's having three suggested prompts based off of the page, or just you can in general have a dialogue with it. But it only has to be, you know, it could be page specific, because if I click to this page, it's different information and I could just reload. It doesn't have to follow the conversation, doesn't have to follow the user around, at least not
okay.
right now. Cool. Okay, so for action steps, Christopher's gonna get started on that. Adonis, you're gonna post the tickets. Let's see. Christopher is going to get started on the API. Adonis post the tickets, and then Trey, so there was three things that I saw, or two things really that I saw. One is integrating the scanner with the API, which would be a conversation between you and Chris that can be fairly easy. Chris and I had a talk about it. I don't think it's actually changing too much that's happening with the scanner. And then the other one was the monitor piece.
Yeah, I mean, for the monitor, I'm still working on it. I don't know. Hopefully, I'm gonna have a demo sometime this week.
Okay.
It's stuff keeps backing up. That's not
Cool. No
this.
problem.
It's really frustrating. With relating the scanner to the API, I think just because it's kind of like a bare API at this point, it should be reasonably easy to interact with. But if Chris for the API needs like a different endpoint or something formatted differently or anything like that, can definitely do that. Oh, and also the Axe formatted results endpoint is up now.
I
don't know if
saw
you
that. Yeah. I'm gonna Blake is going to get the old version. Great. And so,
So-
Trey, yeah, go ahead.
I was just to say, yeah. So I mean, Chris, if you just like want to let me know about any of that stuff, is like if you just like look at the endpoints and then if
Yeah,
there's something
absolutely.
that's missing or like that would be more convenient, just let me know and I can build it
Yeah,
out.
I'll let you know, and maybe we'll schedule a meeting if I get tripped up on something. But I think you can maintain the endpoints. I don't think you'll need to build something new.
Okay, cool.
Cool. And then Trey, so with monitor, I mean, we still do have some of the budget in that $70 an hour kind of realm. I think we'll keep it in there for right now until you get to the spot. And then as we transition into the new budget, we'll get into like this new thing of like just paying for like tranche development, plus a maintenance fee. But for right now, we'll just like focus just getting the monitor because we do have some of that $70 an hour budget and might as well just keep it in that as we've been doing it so far.
Yes.
Cool. Other than this, so I'm gonna also is going to get it and follow up with Cole. And then Kevin, are you cool with the way that we've been working with like this just like kind of bill for the time
I was
thing?
just gonna ask that. Yeah. How? I mean, it works for me. If that works for you, I
I
kind of
think
Billy. I don't know.
I don't really have a good way of, because we're not doing like large feature development type of deals with maintenance piece.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of working out. Um,
My only concern, yeah, I was just gonna say. I mean, I would be open to, kind of a flat thing. I would be. My only concern would be, oh, here's a here's a big chunk of testing that took a really long time in meetings, and I don't know. I think it's going well. I
okay.
don't. I'm fine just to bill at the end of the month, like I said last month when I was gone. Um, so if you're okay with that, I'm good with it. And we can always revisit.
Okay. Yeah. Unless other people have good ideas. I think it makes sense for right now because like your stuff is so like linchpin to a lot of things.
Yeah.
And it's not like really like do this feature. And also, um, I do think we're gonna get into a position soon enough where there will
Mhm.
be a little bit more regularity
Yeah.
that we will be able to say, okay, here's just like a flat monthly like
Yeah. And
deal.
I'm totally cool with that. I feel a little like just because I'm very deadline focused sometimes, so
Mhm.
I have to really kind of kick my own ass sometimes. Like I felt really bad, like, oh, I was gone for 2 weeks and I meant to get them testing a while ago. And so it's like hard to, if I don't have like a set, deliver the testing by this date. So it's a lot of my just setting my own deadlines. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't, I mean, that seems to be working.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm happy with the way it's moving forward. It's a little bit, and I'm gonna just pay you continuously out of the budget that we still have for the from the $100,000.
okay.
So we'll just keep paying, so it's a little bit more loose around hourlies. And then we'll just see where it goes. Does that sound good?
Okay, yeah, and you and I can always check in about it if things
Sounds
change
good.
or there's a big bulk of testing or who knows, you know.
Yeah, totally. Um, okay. The final thing I wanted to talk about, and this is maybe more with Adonis, but just
I'm
to
gonna have
kind
to jump off actually. I have a
Yep.
meeting in a
Okay. Cool,
few minutes,
Kevin.
but thank you everyone and
Yeah,
I'm also gonna jump off. Thanks so
okay,
much,
cool.
guys.
Yeah, thanks.
cool.
Thanks
All
a
right,
lot.
take care. Thank you.
Adonis, do
Take
you have
care.
a few minutes? And Trey, if you want to hang too, we're
Yeah.
so and Trey actually was instrumental in a lot of this stuff. So I'm showing right now the like just some basic wireframes that we were developing to think about like the full onboarding picture of Equalify. So we basically there was like two options, one crazy option and one like this is how everybody else does it option for the onboarding. And I wanted to make sure that you saw this as you get into like that redesign kind of piece. And so what we were thinking of is we would have the main um, landing page for the site, and it would be really focused on um, getting people to put in their URLs. We would have, the features, these kind of things. And this type of user flow is to capture users that have very big sites, because that is our primary bread and butter and what we're mostly useful for. Um, and so you would put in your URL here, you would get into like a simplified version of our dashboard, which is just like one page, nothing more. You couldn't click away to additional things that said very big, 32 issues. And then it would also say how many pages we also found, because when we do the scans, we look at how many pages there are, but we would only do a scan of one page, show how many issues, and then have the message, have the little AI bot. So basically it's like a simplified version of the more complex dashboard. And if you were to click anything like this, the AI bot, if you were to click the setup a scan, it would take you to a sign up page where you have pricing options. Like the typical thing, it would be starting at $55 a month with a sign up form. And then when you signed up, you have the full dashboard. Everything is there. It's like fully laid out. You have access to everything. This is one way of doing it. The benefit of this is like we're going after those high volume users, the ones with big sites, the enterprise users. This is a way of becoming more of a of enterprise service. Now, a crazier thing that makes us more that would be going for just as many users as humanly possible would be to actually make all of the websites exposed to the user, and then users would build collections, and those collections is how they would build reports. So Adonis, a neat thing about Equalify is all of the information that Equalify has, all the data is just public facing data. So we're scanning websites that, are public facing, that they have open data. None of the data that Equalify has is proprietary data. It's all stuff you can get on the web. We're just doing a giant crawl. And so what I was thinking was, since that's the fact of Equalify, we might as well just like really push that hard, in that you're just like a very simple page you go to that just says sign up to browse. Like if I go to facebook.com and I'm not logged in, right? It's just like, do this. And then you have the sign up form. There's a free tier that everybody can get, and then there's a pro tier. So this version would be a pro tier, and you could do like a little slider of how much you want, but you don't have to do the pro tier. You sign up, and then when you sign up, you can navigate the millions of different web pages and websites that Equalify has, kind of like archive.org or something like that, where you can just literally navigate everything that's there. And then there's premium or pro options. So for instance, if you wanted to collect something into a report, let's say like a single report, you could you could do that, but it would be a pro tier option. To make a single report, and that's what people would be paying for. Are these like reports. You could also add a site. We would constantly be scanning things. It's no skin off our back to constantly scan stuff, but you can choose to prioritize the scan of your site, and that would be a pro tier. So instead of, you know, you add a site and like it notifies you in a week or two when it's scanned and in there. Um, we scan your site almost right away because you're paying us to do it. Um, the benefit of this is the benefit of something like this, and this is not like a UX thing, this is more of like wireframes, but the benefit of something like this of exposing all of our data that we have to every user that wants it is that all of a sudden we are like going after we're exposing what we actually do, which is we have public data. We don't have a lot of duplicate data anymore. And we play the game of trying to get as much data and as many users as possible, which I think is a winning game for um for like for web businesses. Like if you think of like successful web businesses like a Facebook or an archive.org, they're exposing as much data and getting as many users as possible with a pro kind of tier. So those are the two kind of options, and I'm curious if like Trey or you have ideas or maybe even other options to think of about onboarding and models around that.
I do have a question for the second model that you provided.
Yeah.
So let's say the user, continues within the free benefits.
Mhm.
What, so he won't be able to do anything else other than see all the websites that we have scanned? Like he
Well,
won't be able to see the issues within those websites? Or
maybe you won't be able to see, maybe what they would be able to see is like a simplified version like this of like just the issues, but not like individual messages and stuff, because the idea is that the users that are doing the free version are not accessibility pros. They just want to see how websites rank. We might even have a ranking system or something like that. And the free version people would probably be like, if I have to think about who the user is of the free version, they are people who are looking at or want to compare their websites to other things. They're not, they want to see kind of like a general picture of web accessibility. There are people that would go to another website called the Web A Million to kind of see a general look of accessibility. They're not necessarily like people in charge of a web accessibility at their organization, um, but they are curious of that um, what like the general view of accessibility is. So this I'm showing you right now is a report called the Web A Million, and I use it all the time just to see like who are the top web accessibility, where are the top web accessibility problems. They're like generalized issues. Um, and so sorry, my daughter is screaming in the background. Uh, but the people who would be using the general piece would be trying to just get a general picture of web accessibility within an industry, or comparing different websites, or just looking at it, and like they can do that for free. But if they want to look specifically at issues around a website, then those people are the ones who are in charge of web accessibility, and they would get kind of deeper, more focused information and be able to collect a few to put a few together on a page.
okay.
That's just a general idea, and like I wanted to see these two ideas because what I think what's important to articulate with this is like Equalify has two basic customers, or one basic customer that we can go out two different ways. Our basic customer and the people who are using Equalify most are web accessibility pros at large organizations like a university. A web accessibility pro at a university wants to like get key pieces for their university stakeholder. Now, in order to get that Web Accessibility Pro to become an Equalify user, there are two different ways to do that. And what I'm doing here is I'm showing you the two different ways that I think that it would do it. One of the ways is just to put in one website and to like tease out what you have with that one URL, with that one page. And then the other way is to create a service that shows all of the pages, all of the information of every website that Equalify has in its system, and advertise that you can see how yours ranks, or you can compare others. That would be the free piece. But I think they're both getting that same user. They're both getting the user that is a Web Accessibility Pro, because if you're going to pay for the Pro version with either way, you're going to get a more expanded, more focused reporting tool and those AI benefits as well.
Okay.
Trey, what are you thinking about this?
I mean, I think we talked about it a little bit before, but I think with the second option, I like I get better now where you're coming from, and like I think it kind of makes sense. The thing that I would say is that I think most of the people that are interested in this as a service are like those big institutional clients, and they're not doing this out of the goodness of their heart. They're doing it because it's like legally mandated slash like a tort. Like
Yeah.
they're legally liable for this. And so I am really hesitant about the idea that people would be willing to. I mean, I think individuals might, but I think if it ever got up a chain at like, let's say my big university, that they ran, they put their information into this site, which they're presumably doing business with us, and then we made public the information that like their of what their accessibility rating was, because that creates like both like foreknowledge and like a legal liability of a thing that, you know what I'm saying? Like, because if I was a client attorney, I would be looking at this and being like, wow, I can look at this site and find people to sue for violating, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, and then it becomes what we're really selling are ways to fix these issues, right?
Right, and I think there's actually probably some value in the kind of like name and shame kind of thing, but I think it's a different business model, and it's a little like, I think it would be a lot to think out about something like that.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of like the tension that something like this creates, that it's for me, it's like, because I'm a little bit of an anarchist, like chaos wizard, that like or maybe more of a chaos monkey. I like that if we put, because it's public data, and like the other reason why I think it would be really crazy to have, like, if Equalify becomes the place you go if you want to see a web page's accessibility score, we have the push and the tension becomes getting as much data as possible and as many pages as possible, and also helping people resolve the issues as much as possible. And I think that's and we have a lot more attention to do that with a website that exposes all of our data versus a website that like exposes that exposes the data that the user wants to that user. And so I think it creates creative tension that might be good or might be terrible. But
I'm just not sure how you monetize it. Like, I don't hate the idea. I just don't. Again, I just don't know who's going to give us money for this. Is the thing. You know what I mean? Like, again, actually, clients' attorney or like attorneys would do this, and I think like that actually is probably a thing worth looking into or thinking about. But like, and I might be wrong, but I'm like skeptical that like institutional clients are going to be super interested in what is essentially a blackmail model. You know what I mean?
well, at the end of the day, I'm most excited by what Adonis gets excited about. So I mean,
Um,
well, only because he's going to be doing these Figma things, and like if you think like it's crazy, like as I get personally excited about exposing as much data as possible to the world. Like that gets me like, whoa, this will be crazy. Like something is gonna come out of that. We might alienate the users that we want, but then we might find a whole new set of users through that process that we actually want. Uh, does that make sense, Trey? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, the other thing too, I would say is like, it is technically, I mean, like it's based on public information, but like what we're those reports and stuff, they like use domain knowledge. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like if I know that you leave your house key under a rock on the sidewalk, that's, you know, it's technically public shit. But if I tell somebody that, like, I have liability for it.
mm.
Yeah.
Do you think it's radical enough, Trey? That would be my question. Is it radical enough to justify the like kind of aggravation that it'll cause people that might become clients?
I mean, I guess I'm just not sure who, like, look, I mean, I think most of these institutional clients, they look at accessibility. The reason that the only reason any of this is happening is because of like the ADA and because of various legislative, you know, compliance rules and like liability exposure for these companies. That is the only reason that they care about it, because it is not like they're not doing it out of the goodness of their heart. And they're not doing it like because it makes them money. So I guess my question, like again, is just like who is what the revenue stream is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If we're like kind of building a model that's going to intentionally alienate those people who have like an assortment of legal reasons to like comply with it. And like I said, I think separately there might be like I think there could be an argument for what is basically a name and shame model of like scanning people's sites and then being like, you know, either, you know, trying to build up an audience or a customer base of like attorneys who want this information so that they can bring forward lawsuits, or like, you know, kind of almost like ransoming.
Actually,
Those are two things I can see that lead to money.
I have an answer for you, Trey, with who our customer with that I think would really appreciate this. Are developers. I think developers who work at teams in large organizations like this type of weirdness. As long as we have, and Adonis, this is actually something that I was thinking about, which is like, as long as we very clearly have like API, like what this is a realization and visualization of our API in a really inspiring way, that then developers who are working on these sites get motivated by. And that's actually where I see like what I see the web app and what Adonis is building is it's inspiring developers to use the data in ever cooler ways that hopefully, you know, moves them to new heights. And it does provide like a quick way to do it, but because we're going to offer this as a service through our API, like if at the end of the day, if a developer who hits our API 1,000 times a day, or if a developer hits our API 1,000 times a day, that's going to be way more valuable than Accessibility Pro who works in an organization and like pays us a annual fee, and way less headache too, and way more fun to work with.
Is it more valuable though? I mean, that's the thing. Like, I think because you could be cutting like multi-$1,000 like annual
Yeah.
fixed income or, you know, fixed return kind of deals with institutional clients who have money because they again have like a legal like liability to spend that money versus, I mean,
But if so, there's a limited amount of, and Adonis, feel free when you say when we're not saying anything that's useful, feel free to cut out or whatever. But when uh when if we can create a user experience that inspires developers, our customer base doesn't just become the maybe few thousand institutions in the US that have to care about this. It becomes the hundreds of thousands of developers who work on websites that should be caring about this, that aren't necessarily caring about this, because we're using our user experience to inspire them and to do something kind of radical. And like, I like that because we're not, because the with or without us, the accessibility experts at these institutions will have to care about accessibility with or without us. The developer who is inspired by the work, the user experience that Adonis creates, and then wants to do something really cool that they're not able to do through the dashboard right now, so they use our API, like that is way more valuable to me than the accessibility expert that has to do it anyway. So that's my argument for being radical and just like, oh, we're exposing all the data that has been sent to us, you know? Um, what do you, Adonis, are you thinking about anything?
I mean, there, I don't know. We can probably do something where the user, or let's say the company or whatever, have the option to choose if, you know, they want to expose their data. Because we can have like some of the scans, that some of the web pages that we have scanned be public, and other ones, let's say, that are more private, let's say for like a college that doesn't want to show that information of
Mm.
all, accessibility errors that they have for XY reasons, they don't want to get sued or whatever, we can have the option for them to just have it as private, like.
I wouldn't
And in that case,
I
they'll probably have to go pro, like
yeah.
they want to have something, private.
I mean, I'm a little bit crazy in that I would never, if we went this route, I would never allow people to make their information private. I would allow them, though, to scan their local environments and not expose that information. But if they were scanning publicly facing, or I mean, actually, let me rephrase myself. I would never, I don't think we need to give them an option of making public sites private because they're public, but I think we should give them an option of scanning internal sites and never making that public, because they're internal. And these are things that would be like password protected that they wouldn't show up on Equalify anyway. But they should never have the like what like IMDb, which is a big movie database, has, which like if you pay $9.99 a month, you can like change information on it. I think we should always make public information should be public information because it's public information. But if people want to scan SSO, encrypted sites and have that saved in a secure way, that's cool, and we will never display that and hide that in a way. Um, but I do think that we're going to get developers that are really inspired by the work you're doing, Adonis, because they want to do something a little bit different, and they're going to use the API, and your work is going to inspire them to do that. And like it also plays into why we need to be open source too, because they could see how you're using the API, and so it becomes a reason to keep the front end open source, because by keeping that open source, we're just showing people how more creative ways to use the API.
Okay.
Trey still seems uh not bought into this crazy idea, which I like.
I just don't know where the money's coming from. That's, you know what I mean? Like, because I think if you're talking, what you're talking about would involve like scaling, but like without a revenue model. Or that's just I just don't, because I see a clear path for, like I say, the big institutional clients paying us money to monitor and report to them errors because they have a ton of incentives to pay us money to do that.
Yeah.
I just don't really understand that revenue model for. I think a revenue model needs to happen, or it has to be here for the second option. You know what I mean?
agree.
Because and it's not out of everything has to be monetized. It's like I need to pay rent. You know what I mean?
No. Yeah, I know. I agree. I completely agree. I mean, it has to be. We have to have a sustained approach, and if these, maybe we could just keep thinking about it. I mean, because like philosophically, Trey, to the second one seems like the better, like more morally right way, or like correct.
I guess. I mean, I think it's a broader conversation, like a philosophical conversation. But I mean, I do think like what Adonis said. I think like allowing scans, free scans are like a limited number of free scans, and then those scans are like public information on the Equalify website. And then if you pay money, you can have private scans, and you know the rest of the kind of upsell features that makes sense to me. I think you're kind of talking about it's a different revenue model, but it is that strikes me as as a revenue model.
Cool. So like just adding the option of private site as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the idea here would be that it's free to scan if you're willing to have everything
Exposed.
out in public, and if you want scans without, and you want private scans that only you can see, you pay money. That would be essentially.
Yeah. But what happens when when somebody puts in a website like a university, and that university wants to make their and like so somebody random does it as a free scan, and then the university then wants to do it as a private scan. Who
They're
gets
paying us money to make it private. I mean, and honestly, I think that would probably be the majority of that would be your conversions, would be because it's either somebody works at a university and puts in their university site and gets this results back and sends it to whoever it is that has purse string control, and then they're like, oh, okay, well, we need to I mean, it's honestly kind of a little bit like the
so
review site kind of thing, but
yeah, so to table this, I'm gonna actually reach out to a few of the customers, and I'm gonna ask them about this idea. Because I actually think that the accessibility pros would be like totally into this idea. It's their bosses that might not be. And they would like, so if we basically, like, the cost piece is us prioritizing scans and us allowing and scanning private sites that never show up here, if that was like where we made money, basically, I bet you the accessibility pros would pay just as much money as they're paying right now to do that. I'm pretty sure. So like the only thing that we're charging for are prioritized scans, private sites, and then the AI thing just because it costs us money. Like those three things, the AI thing, prioritized scans, and private sites, that's what we're charging for. And then we expose everything else. I'm pretty sure that and support is another one. I'm pretty sure uh uh um I'm pretty sure that people will pay for that, but I'll double check. And I would just say, like, Adonis, like, I'm really hope that we can develop a dashboard that takes like shit tons of information, like millions and millions and millions of pages, and organizes it in a way that's cool and inspiring. Because when you start, like, I hope Equalify has 100 million pages by the end of the year scanned into its system. Like, they're cost wise, I mean, Chris was rallying off the costs. It's not really going to cost that much to have that much information in the back end. It's more of making an inspiring dashboard like experience that can take 100 million websites. So like my challenge to you would be, imagine the dashboard for 100 million websites. What does that look like? You know,
Yeah.
how do you navigate that?
Yeah, for sure.
And I
I
think,
guess
yeah, go ahead.
for me to move on, first check, have the idea of where you want to bring Equalify. If you want to go with this, model, if you want to do that, then I can, go with finding a way to make, the user experience and the UI better. Because what I had previously, it's, it doesn't cover this part that you just showed me. So I will have to do some more user and, UI UX research to make it fit better for this type of.
What do you think? I mean, what does your gut tell you? What do you think about?
I mean, it's it's cool, I think, yeah. I just had similar, the similar concern that Trade had about, having the data exposed like that, even though it's public, not many people, I guess, like accessibility pro experts, or let's say only developers will know that you can, you know, check for those type of things publicly. But let's say random people just want to know, hey, let me check this website out and the errors they have. They might just not know and just go through our website and then follow the setup and things. But I don't know. It's up to
Let
you
me
to
let
be.
me let me let me have a conversation today with a few customers. I do think, and I was talking about this with a friend who owns like a really big company, focusing on developers, and the word that you said of like developers would know that this is public data, so why not do this? And getting developers to defend us on that basis is really, really powerful in building a application, because you could have like end users who don't know that the accessibility data is public, and they might complain on Twitter about us, like, look at these assholes like putting this stuff out. And a developer will respond to that. It was like, wait, dude, like just open up Chrome Dev Tools. It's public. It's all there. You don't need, like, they're not doing anything. Like, that is valuable, that attention, I think. And also the kind of fight that the reason why I'm in this is to do that. Now, I also am conscious that I have a new baby and need to pay rent and all that stuff. And so, you know, is that like, so I will go ask a few of the customers to see if they would not pay us if we did this, or what they think about it. I I'm betting that we'll be surprised that they'll say totally, because their whole business is accessibility, and they're coming from the same angle that I'm coming from it on. Um, okay, cool. Thanks.
One other thing I would just throw in is that I
Yeah.
think if we do go the kind of like mass model and we're trying to like say get developer buy-in, I think we're gonna need a like runway, because we're gonna need to scale to be able to handle 10 times which is just cost money. So
Yeah. Which I wouldn't mind raising money on. Like I was saying, I don't want to go to investors because I don't really have anything that I'm excited about to raise money on. But like that would be like a pretty clear ask, like cool. Okay, thanks so much for going through this. We'll meet again next week. Adonis, I know that you're working, so like don't feel pressure to come to these meetings, but I'll see you in Slack regardless.
Sounds good. Pick me on Slack after you have discussed, this with the customers. And also, do you mind sharing this with me so that I can have?
Yeah. I will. Do you have a Mac or PC?
I have a PC.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna export it out as it's like stupidly I did this on this Mac only program, but I'm gonna export it out to give it to you.
All right, sounds good. Perfect.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. And then Trey, we have the decubing meeting, so I'll see you there at some point. All right, bye.
Thanks
See you
so
down. Thanks.